Good morning and welcome to the Financial Pillars All About the Money podcast presented by Our Neutral Voices Media. Our show is all about helping our audience understand money, mindsets, and tap into the economic knowledge that builds financially secure individuals, families, and communities. So whether you're tuning into our show to learn about budgeting, building credit, investing, or starting your own business, we're here to break down the knowledge in a real and relatable way. So let's go ahead and kick off the show here with a few introductions. My name is Ryan Leopard. I'm a private banker with Star Financial Bank. Kicking my man over here, JJ.
I'm JJ Foster with Lake City Bank. Pleasure to be back here. Seems like it's been a while since I've been on set.
Just for the financial pillar, not the other one, right?
Well,
Saw you last night. T?
All right. Yeah, my name is Terrence Bush. I am from Greenway Bank, and I am a business universal banker.
Business universal banker.
Yes, sir.
New title?
Not necessarily a new title. I just double with the consumer and the business side of things. So pretty much, depending on who walks through the door, I have to be able to assist pretty much anybody that walks through the door.
Gotcha. That's universal.
So hold on. I was going to say, let's elaborate. Universal. That's a big word.
Yes, extremely.
What exactly? Give us
so it's
details.
Definitely an umbrella. I will absolutely say that. So my primary focus would be for our smaller business clients or our larger commercial clients that do walk into the door as well. Since I do have a background in the consumer side of banking, any consumers that walk through the door, I have to have knowledge with what type of products and services we offer our consumers as well. And then on top of that, I am in charge of doing some other odd tasks as well as far as auditing commercial loans.
That's a whole other concept. Odd tasks.
I would. I just want to put odd tasks, but when it comes to it, yes, I double as a teller, a personal banker, business banker, and pretty much an auditor at the same time as well.
So you're a jack of all trades. I'm
Absolutely.
thinking universal. I'm thinking you doing business in Indonesia and Tokyo.
Not yet. Maybe in the future. Right. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, today we're missing our newest member of our team, Ben Weibel, who's on vacation. So, Ben, if you're out there, shout out to you and enjoy your vacation. We'll see you here in a couple weeks, hopefully. So, but let's kick off the show today with a topic. We got a big event coming up tonight, financial literacy seminar. So, JD, tell us a little bit about it.
Tonight is going to be the first of a three-part series. Youth Sense is what we call it. But from 6 to 8 o'clock, we'll be at the Fort Wayne Urban League. So we want to see all the young people come out from grades 6th grade to 12th grade. And, we've talked right here on this very show how important it is to lay that foundation for our young people in relation to financial wealth. Tonight we're going to have we always feed people. It's going to be good knowledge. It's going to be prizes, actually cash giveaways. So hope everybody comes out and supports.
So not only are we feeding you with the knowledge, but we're feeding you with the food and the cash as well, right?
Yes, sir. We'll be there, man. Today, our counterparts, we got a baseball coach over here. He can't make it tonight, and Ben is obviously out on vacation. So me and Terrence will be holding it down. But walking around with, cash, giving out money for people that, are participating and interactive. So, again, come on out. It's going to be a great time.
Gotcha. So you mentioned the importance of these type of financial literacy seminars. Why are they important? Why are we gearing towards reaching that age demographic right there?
It's funny because I was thinking about that as I was coming on the show. I really would want to speak to the parents because you're in banking, I'm in banking. Everybody we come across says, hey, I wish I would have known this when I was younger. I wish I would have, I had this information. Now, here's your opportunity, parents. Get your children in front of some people, in front of some industry experts where they don't have to fall into the same pitfalls that, you did as an adult. The sooner we lay that foundation of people being fiscally, fundamental, the better versus finding out after the fact, as we heard a lot of different horror stories and things when we did, our adult financial workshops. Now is the time when people, they can come out and you put it on their mind about what should I be doing with my money? Because T, you can speak to the fact that kids are making money right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I was just going to touch on what you said, Ryan, about why it's important for us to have these seminars, especially with the younger generation. As we all know, times have changed since when you were a child versus when JJ was a child, of course, even our parents, grandparents. Banks consistently grow and evolve to adapt to the needs of the consumer and the businesses that we come in contact with. So, of course, with that being said, banking for you how many years ago isn't the same as it is today. Of course, with a lot of banks rolling out these new online features that allows consumers and businesses to pretty much operate all their banking online at the touch of their phones, I think it's important to grasp the knowledge and the concepts of how those are built and designed to aid people when it comes to banking. And of course, just going out and walking into a bank and grabbing pamphlets and walking out the door typically isn't how banks or credit unions operate anymore. They typically have all the information online that you can go and access to. So the thing is, if you're not actively going to those websites and actively looking for that information, you're not going to get it unless you physically go in and sit down and talk to somebody. So that's why I think it's important to sit down with some of our experts in financial institutions so that they get a better understanding of what banks and credit unions have to offer you and why it's important to have a broader knowledge when it comes to financial institutions.
Yep. So, and we're looking to, you mentioned something about like the previous financial seminars and some of the conversations we're having, and we kind of recognize that while it's great that we have the older generation there, but a lot of the questions and conversations were around like repairing credit.
Correct.
What happens if we get out in front of that and we reach the youth and get them to understand the importance of understanding the financial banking system, understanding the importance of credit, what all that affects in your life. So they're put into a place with the knowledge to be successful off the bat, rather than failing and then having to spend the next X amount of years trying to rebuild that once they get to a point where they finally understand that, right? Because we know that, there is a gap in the school system with that kind of financial literacy knowledge, right?
Yes.
So hopefully we can step in to do that. It's interesting because I had a conversation with somebody yesterday with JA who kind of told me that, there is a new government initiative, right, to kind of address that concern. They've reached out to them to kind of push that agenda along, but also at the kind of extent where like, you got to fund it yourself.
Gotcha.
But it does seem like that maybe now there's some, focus on that standpoint. So, where do we fit in and how do we do that?
Yeah, everything that I heard you say, and it was funny as I was preparing for this evening, it's about value. What is a value? What is important to you? You tell a story about your first stereo and how it puts you.
You remember that story?
Yeah, I
listening.
remember all of them. That's what I'm telling you. So when we formulate and put stuff together, I take all these things into consideration. But think about it. When you're a young person and you happen to have a job, it's like, hey, what can I spend this? What do I need to buy? And again, you go out and you purchase something. It might be, hey, your shiny new object for a week or two. Then it's like, man, why did I buy that? Mm-hmm. Now, you got it on
the credit card and you're paying for it for the next 2 years, right?
Correct. And then something comes up, your buddies decide, hey, they're going to take a trip, but you can't go on a trip because you broke because you just bought, you had to have the latest, greatest, whatever, versus having something that's sitting there that, hey, now, yeah, I could do that. So these are things that we take in mind, and really just something you put on young people's mind that changing the mindset is exactly that, thinking about your dollar versus not just, I got it, let me spend it. I'm going to work and I'm going to make more.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I had the conversation I had yesterday with an individual, I was going back to, when I was a kid and kind of letting her know that, I don't know that I ever specifically sat down with my parents. They taught me how to budget and they taught me about credit. They taught me about this. They taught me about that. To me, from what I remember, money just kind of always made sense. But really, I went back to, it's just a matter of mindset of responsibility, right? Because that's really what all of that stuff is. Understanding that, hey, if you have responsibilities, those things need to get paid first. And once I got into banking and started sitting with customers, I kind of realized, well, what I thought was just natural, the norm wasn't, right? There's a lot of people out there that just don't have that, I guess, accountability or sense of responsibility to understand. They're more impulsive. They got money in the bank and they see something they want. They're just going and buying it, not think about, I got a bill next week. They worry about that when it comes, right? Yeah. So can either one of you speak to that kind of, in your household, what was it like growing up and how did you kind of learn your financial literacy?
I was very much raised by old-fashioned parent. Shout out to my mom, of course. Thank you for everything you've taught me. From a young age, the first initial work that I started doing was landscaping as a way to make income. So the money that I would receive, my mother initially let me manage my own finances. There were times where I would want to do something and I didn't have the money for it. And that's when she would sit me down and she would let me know, that's how money works. You get it, you spend it. If you don't have it, you can't do something else. From that young age, I pretty much learned how to maintain my finances. I learned what my priorities were. So at the time, let's say around the age of 16, I did have a cell phone. I did have to pay like $35 a month to keep my cell phone on. I knew that I needed to cut at least 3 or 4 lawns to be able to have enough money to keep my cell phone on and still have some money to play with. So I think it just boils down to where my priorities lied. I knew I needed a working and active cell phone. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to go out on my own and do things that I wanted to do. So it definitely turns into, if I have the money for it, where are my priorities at first? Of course, I knew I had to pay my cell phone bill. Of course, I was still living at home, so I was still pitching and doing that. Of course, if I wanted to buy a video game or if I wanted to buy a new pair of headphones, these are all things that I knew that I had to work and gain money and put money aside so that I would have it for when I wanted to go purchase it. It wasn't something where I made the money and I went and spent it. Yeah, I did have my moments where I did want to buy myself things because I was capable of doing so. But at the end of the day, I knew I had priorities. I knew I had certain things that I had to pay for. And the older I got, when I got my first car, of course, I knew I had a car payment. I knew I had to pay for insurance. I knew I still had to keep my phone on. So those things were the things that pretty much took the priority in my mind. Mm-hmm. The wants slowly became smaller and smaller the more that I obtained my necessities, of course. Now that I do live alone, of course, I know that my rent comes out first. I know I have my car payment. I know I have my insurance. I know I have my phone bill, the Wi-Fi payment, things like that. Those are my first priorities. So if, say, I get enough money to break even that month, I'm paying my bills. If that means I don't get to go out on the weekend, I don't go out on the weekend. That means I don't get to go out and get myself a sandwich or a burger. That means I don't do it. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of people that have come to me since I've been in the financial industry telling me about how, well, I don't have enough bills to cover this, or I don't have enough money to cover this bill coming out. And that's where we pretty much segue into the point where we need to make sure that you have an effective budget in place. Mm-hmm. If you're not making enough to meet ends meet, you need to make sure that you are, like JJ said, valuing every dollar that you have. Mm-hmm. Every dollar that you have, you should know where that dollar is going towards. So I think as being younger, it's more important to learn what your priorities are at a young age versus trying to learn what they are when you're in the middle stage of life.
Now, from your real quick, Jay, your family background there, you mentioned, having to be responsible for your own insurance, car, and all that stuff. Were your parents in a position where they could have done that for you, but they put that responsibility on you? Or were they a situation where, like, hey, if you want it, we can't afford it, you got to do it yourself?
It was pretty much where the capability was there for my parent, but it was more of I want you to learn these life lessons.
So it sounds like you had a solid family foundation to help instill those morals.
It was very much if you want it, you go do it. Like, it wasn't I'm going to buy your first car for you. I'm not going to buy your first cell phone for you. If it's something that you want, you need to show me that you want it. So I did. I have to apply myself. I had to put the effort in. I had to go apply to jobs. I had to cut time away from video games and being outside and playing with friends so that I could achieve the things that I wanted. And honestly, I will say that I'm grateful for everything that I was taught at a young age. And I would say it definitely set me off on the right foot into adulthood.
So I'm saying kudos to your parents.
Absolutely.
They're instilling the work ethic in you. And like you said, you learned that value early, because there's so many households, and I think this is what you were alluding to, where kids work, but the family still handles everything. So you see that kid walking around, they can buy all the toys. They can do everything they want with their money because they're under their parents' roof. And they're thinking they're doing something. Then they get out on their own. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I got to pay my own cell bill. I got to pay my car payment. I got to pay my insurance. When I had this money thinking I was doing something, but they weren't taught. I
will tell you what, if a young person, 18, 19, 20 years old, maybe college, didn't think maybe it is, but they're working out there. Think about this. They, in my opinion, are in a position to set themselves up way more than we were when we were kids, right? Because if you're living at your home, parents' home, mm-hmm. and whether they're making you pay or not, if they're not making you pay anything, because that's kind of my rules, my 19-year-old's like, hey, if you're not out there just blowing money, buying stupid crap, I don't care if you're here as long as you're saving money, right? Making $20 an hour, $22 an hour, something like that. All savings, right? Because there's really no expenses other than car and gasoline out there, right? Mm-hmm. If you want food, something like that. But comparing that to myself, when I was out on my own at 19 years old, and I was making $7 to $9 an hour, right? Paying bills on that, right? So that's why I try to instill in him is that, like, listen, I don't mind staying here for a few years if you do that, but you could put yourself in a position to really save $60,000, $70,000 over a couple year period and put yourself in a position where, boom, when you move out, you own a house, you got good equity, down payment, smaller payment because you can put more down on it. They can really set themselves up for a successful life at an early age nowadays with the amount they're paying if they do it and manage that stuff right.
Yeah.
Yep. So what do we do? Because we've heard a little bit about your background before on here. It's kind of similar to Terrence. You came from a strong family household, right?
Yes, sir.
Kind of instilled some of the same morals in you, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So not everybody has that though, right? So how do we get them to understand the importance of attending these type financial literacy seminars? Because they're probably not getting that same responsibility and moral sport, home sport, things like that at home.
That's what I said. We've talked to enough adults that, they come through the doors and say, man, nobody ever taught me. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm appealing to. Nobody ever taught you. Now you got the opportunity to bring your son, your daughter, put them in front of some people to get the skills, to learn some things. Quite honestly, to learn some things that some folks that we work with that, don't know as adults. Mm-hmm. So here's an opportunity for your child to get this knowledge, to get that head start, to understand what's going on. And that's the beautiful thing of it. When we talk about finances, we're talking, it could be as basic as how do I write a check, balance in the checkbook, budgeting, to if you want to get off in investments. I mean, there's so many different avenues and areas that we can get off on, and that's what we're going to do. This is a 3-part series. Tonight we're going to cover a couple different modules. And then when we come back in June, we'll cover a couple more, and just continue to build. But the bottom line is, our whole goal is to make people more well-rounded as they become adults. And you're not walking into somewhere or something hitting you, and you're like, hey, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. We want to eliminate that. Nobody ever told me. We want somebody, when they come through our doors, be like, man, I remember when I went to that workshop, at the Urban League, ONV put on. That's what we want to do. And when we can do that, now you're talking about changing the whole community. If we got a whole community of fiscally responsible people, I mean, think about where we would be at.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And also, helping to understand that, because with ONV, we do multiple pillars, right? You do family, sports, you do mental health, things like that. Yeah. How much of a factor does your financial stability play in everything else in your life? Right?
Yeah, everything. I mean, look at the divorce rates. What's the number one reason people get divorced?
Finances.
Everybody knows that. Like you said, mental health. You see people, harming themselves and doing things, jumping off buildings. Why? Something happened with their finances. So yeah, these are all things. When you can be comfortable financially, and again, we're not talking about being rich. No. We're just talking about being comfortable. We just had a discussion last night after our show. And, everybody doesn't have to make $200,000. I can make $40,000 a year. I can make 30. There's people making 30, but they're living within themselves, within their means, and they have a comfortable living. They're fine. And that's all we're talking about. Wherever you're at, we're meeting you wherever you're at, and being comfortable versus where you have to struggle and, not knowing where your finances are coming from to pay for that next bill, or if you're going to have it at all. Just get in that place where you're comfortable. And as you continue to learn and grow, hey, heaven forbid, you're able to make some money off your money. Why it's sitting there. So we're talking about saving. We can get off and talk about where your money's not just sitting there, but you're actually earning a little bit while your money is sitting there.
Understand that, sometimes you mentioned like struggling there. A lot of times those struggles come from decisions that we made prior to, and now we're trying to catch up or fix or something like that, right? Kind of things just snowball out. I just had a major car issue. My truck engine went out, 78,000 miles. I don't know if you guys have heard about the GM recall that they had, right? They recalled 600,000 vehicles. Unfortunately, they were 2020s to 24s, and mine's a 2019. Exact same issue, so I don't know if they'll expand that, but different topic for another day. But, something that, hey, I only got I've had this since the car's brand new. It's got 70,000 miles on it, 78, I think, to be exact. I thought I had 100,000 miles or so before I got to start worrying about something. Never even had a check engine light. All of a sudden, boom, car went out. It's like, what is this? Come to find out, engine issues, major repairs. Like, dealerships charging me $10,000 for it. Found somebody that can do it all, the same thing outside the dealership. It's going to cost me about $4,000. But imagine that if I had not prepared for something like that and have money in my savings, right? Nobody wants to pay that kind of money. To me, it's like, I can only think of a few things in my life that I paid that kind of money for at one time. But luckily for me, I've in roundabout way kind of plan for that by holding money back and saving that. So this is not going to be a detrimental financial hit to me. But not everybody has that ability, right?
Exactly
So
right.
being able to understand that impulse buying can lead to bad decisions when you should be saving that money because you never know when the rainy day is going to come and you're going to need that. But if it does and you're not prepared for it, that can set you back years, right?
Terrence, I know you always got good advice you give people when it comes down to savings, and you've told stories. Go ahead and share something this morning.
Stories. Ooh, okay. I remember I had a client come in one day. This is a band that I sat down and I broke down his entire financial, pretty much portfolio for him, if that's the word that you want to take today. So pretty much found out how much he made annually, pretty much how much he brought in after taxes, found out what his actual obligations were and what he was pretty much wasting his money on. He was wasting about $1,800 a month just on random gas station trips. I'm talking cigarettes, pop, video games, just the stuff that you would never think somebody would
And he was probably like,
consistently
"Where's all my
waste
money
money on."
going?
Absolutely. And it literally got to the point where we took a personal loan application because he didn't have enough money to pay his bills. And after we sat down and I broke it down for him and I basically showed him the numbers, I'm like, this is how much you make a month after taxes. This is how much your obligations are. I'm like, you still have about over $3,000 left that's not spoken for. There's absolutely no reason that you should ever be in a situation like this. After I broke it down, I could see the look on his face, like the realization that, wow, I am not managing my money correctly. And I wasn't trying to be rude. I'm like, you're not. You have a higher and stronger capability of having a greater savings within the course of 6 months than almost 50% of the people that I interact with on a daily basis. You can have one of the best safety nets in 6 months. And I literally showed him, I was like, if you even spend up to
This is somebody
$500,
struggling to pay their bills.
yes. And I'm like, and this is somebody that I'm like, even if you take $500 up to even $1,000 a month to waste on yourself, I said you would still have over $12,000 in 6 months if you
$1,800
saved
house
your money.
payment.
Exactly. So once I broke that down to him, I'm like, this is how easy it is for you to save your money. And we still took the personal loan app and he still got declined.
Mm-hmm.
And now he was in the, okay, well, I don't know what to do now. I'm like, yes, that's why having a savings is important. That's why having a budget is important. If you know you have monthly priorities, we need to be taking care of those first.
Mm-hmm.
You know for a fact that you need to put at least 50% of your income towards your bills. That should be the first thing on your mind always. You should never be looking at wants or any just random desires before you know your priorities are taken care of. And I met with that man pretty much on a monthly basis. We came in and I was like, so how are you doing with saving for the first month? I'm doing great. You know, I've learned to tell people no, like I'm stopping going to the gas station so frequently. I'm like, it's great. Don't need to do that. I'm like, nobody needs to go to the gas station. You would literally save more money if you just went to a grocery store than going to the gas station.
I think about that all the time. Every time I leave that house, I spend $50, $100, something like that nowadays. No matter on groceries or what it is, that's not even luxury stuff.
Exactly.
You know, if I leave the house to do it, it's like, man, if I would just stayed home today,
Yeah, yeah.
You
But I
save
stayed
so
home
much.
today,
You save so much money when you stay
kind of,
home. Yeah.
kind of understood that. I've kind of figured that out. Like during COVID, people didn't leave the house for a week, 2 weeks. Like, man, I got money, right? Because you weren't going out buying all that unnecessary stuff, right? If you're not going out of the house, your gas lasts longer,
And
right?
that is exactly why I pay at the pump. Temptation is not there. I see people go in the store. I've seen bags of chips almost $5-6, knowing that you
Yeah.
could go to Walmart and get it for like $3 or $4. It's
See, yeah, to me, the discipline on that is I see a bag of chips for $3. Like, I'm not paying $3 for that bag of chips.
some people just
Yeah.
don't have that level of discipline yet,
yeah.
and there's nothing against that. Of course, some people, you know, if they see it, they want it, they're going to get
And
it.
that's what I was saying earlier is I think, I took for granted that what, common sense and what I would think is common sense is the norm. And sitting in your position in a retail bank, talking to most people, come to find out it's not the norm, or at least there's a good split there, right? There's a lot of people out there that are exactly like that, impulse buyers.
Yeah. I give you two stories. Hey, the one, like you talk about not leaving the house. Me and my wife went to my niece's graduation the other day. So we're downtown and we had about 30 minutes to kill. I said, hey, let's go grab a drink. Went and grabbed a drink, 30 minutes. My bill was $61 up to. I said, wow.
Should've
to
stayed
your
home.
point- Yeah, hey, should have went right back home. Forget grabbing a drink. I was like, wow.
Drink's not
Hey.
$3 or $4 anymore.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
the
Have a
price
beer
of
for $6.
progress downtown in Fort Wayne. Hey, but hey, it is what it is. But I had a relative owns his own business, and he had a gentleman that worked for him, was good at what he does, and so had a hefty salary. but yet he was always coming asking for advances. So he's like, well, why? What's going on? Oh, yeah, I'm struggling with my bills, this, that, the other. So they went ahead, instead of giving advance, he said, how about I just give you a raise? Gave him a raise on top of his hefty salary. What do you still think happens after a couple months? He's coming back, still asking for
You
advances.
spent that raise already.
It's to my point, like I mentioned, some people, if they make that money, they got to spend it. It's not any saving. It's not, to your point, not waiting. I got a bill next week. I've got the money. Hey, everything is a good idea. Let's go out. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it's bad. It's a mindset.
So
Yes.
that's a great point. And to give you a different set of mindset for our listeners out there, instead of having that, like for instance, each year when I get a raise, I take whatever that raise is, and that goes into a different account. That's a savings account, right? Completely different bank, right? So I have X amount of dollars that I want to save each month that comes out of my check that goes into another bank account. So it's not easy for me to transfer to a checking account on here or anything like that. So each year when that raise comes, I just up that direct deposit into that bank account over there, and it builds up quicker over there. Right?
Yep, and
That's another budgeting tool as well.
Absolutely. And just speaking to the mindset, I do think some people, when they do get a raise, they don't consider how much more money they could be saving with this initial raise, but how much more they could be spending with this new initial raise. So if you're struggling now and you make like $15 an hour and you get a bump to 18, you shouldn't be calculating how much more you get to spend. You should definitely be calculating how much you will be able to save now. I think that is the biggest thing. When you get a raise, you should be thinking about how quickly you can up your savings instead of how much you can just spend now.
Yeah. I think back to you talking about your son making $20 an hour, and to bring it back to, to the youth, if I'm in high school and I'm making 20 an hour, if I'm making 15 an hour,
15,
that's more
16.
than that's more than my friend. So if I'm putting half in the bank and I've got the other half, I mean that's living a pretty good lifestyle. Better than my buddies. But some, to our point, is hey, you making that 20, I'm spending that 20. So.
We talked about, with go back to my son on that is, you take X amount of dollars in your paycheck, put it in your savings account there, and he's even so anal to the point of like, I don't take money out of my savings account. So got a cell phone bill. It's like, you ain't paid your cell phone bill yet. Well, I'll pay on Friday. Nah, bill's already paid. Pay me. Well, that means I got to take it out of my savings account. Pay your bill. Everything else, do that. You should have planned on that before you put the money in there. I want money.
I'm with your son. I was the exact same way.
Yeah. So in one standpoint, I'm happy about that because that's how it preaches to me. Money in the savings is money out of sight. It's not my checking account. It's not money to spend. I act like it's not even there. And it pains me to have to pull money out of there when I do. And he's kind of the same mindset, which is a good budgeting tool for it. But I'm of the mindset of I want my money.
And there was something I wanted to touch on too, and that we're dealing with, and we could say young kids, but even the middle school and high school age kids, the fact that there's no money changing hands now. So it's like everybody Apple Pay, Cash App, credit cards. So little kids in their mind, hey, can we go to McDonald's, Mom? It's just you giving that debit card. They don't see any money change. They just assume that something. They just got this card.
Yeah.
They don't know how the interactions of how it works. And even for our high school kids, it's just easy to hit that Cash App, boom, sending money, and not understanding the value. And at the end of the day, again, the bigger picture and how this all works. So these are things that we like to speak to and bring to the forefront. Just, make young people aware. Your mom earned that money. Dad earned that money. It's not a magic card. Yeah, that's not a magic card. That money from Cash App, Apple Pay, whatever you're using, that's coming from, they earned that money somewhere, and that's where it's coming from. So it's not a limitless stream of finances. So you put this flyer together? Hey, the King of Flyers, James put that flyer together.
I was going to ask you, I had a question. What's that face all about?
She broke.
She broke.
She broke. And Mama won't take her to McDonald's.
She's 5. She should be broke.
Hey, Mama just told her, this ain't a magic card, baby. Hey.
I thought that was the I don't want to be here phase, but
That's what I was wondering too. I don't want to be here. Who brought me to this thing? Yeah.
Broke, yeah.
She's broke. Now I get it.
That worked.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Dude.
So I don't know if we mentioned. So what are some of the topics we're going to be talking about tonight?
Tonight, that's what I was. Me and Terrence have been discussing. We're going to go over just the basics, like we talked about banking on. the different financial institutions, different places that are out there that handle financial matters that you can go to put your money, to receive your money. So just handling all the basics, and then the other unit that we're going to talk about is managing your income. So those that do have income, talking about some of the same things that we're talking about today, just what to do with that money, how to budget it, what kind of plans, again. And that's why when I said values, that literally is one of the big things. What does it mean? And the other thing too we're going to discuss is who's influencing you. Because when you think about it, like we talked about, your buddies, your parents, TV, who is it? What's making you think you have to have this item? This is what you really want to purchase. Because when you can you stop and you think about those type of things and you really understand, man, that stuff really, it don't mean nothing to me, And I don't have to have the best George. Ooh, hey, you big time for a couple of weeks, and after that, then it's no big time. And then the other thing too, the more you floss, the more you got to deal with people out there trying to get what you got. Mm-hmm. Are you prepared for that? And that leads to a whole bunch of different problems. So it's a lot of things that go into it. And that's everything we want to do. We just want to put some stuff on their mind, be provoking.
Yeah. On that note, I've mentioned this on the show before, but being in the banking world, and T could probably attest to this as well, is some of the most wealthiest people that I ever sat with and talked to, they weren't wearing designer stuff, right? That nice car out in the parking lot, but you didn't know that when they were sitting in there. You only know that when you watched them walk out. But clothes weren't fancy, shoes weren't fancy. They looked like
some of them don't have the nicest car in the parking lot. Yeah,
than the teenager standing in line next to them.
Absolutely,
right? Priorities.
I had a client that I sat with. This was somebody that could have been in private banking, treasury management if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. They biked around the city for a living.
They what?
Biked around the city. I'm like, so you drive a car? He was like, yeah, sometimes in the summer. Otherwise, I just ride my bike everywhere. I'm like, oh.
I think J. Cole's famous for doing that.
It was like me thinking, I'm like, I probably would have had a BMW or something like that. I said, I probably would have went out there and got an Audi or something like that. I said, bitch, you around biking. And I was like, and that is why you have the legacy that you have now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Living within your means.
Priorities. It's wasting money. Right?
Correct.
Wealthy people hate wasting money.
I remember I was, when I was younger, high school, I believe, but I was in the barbershop, and Deion Sanders had just signed. He is all golded up, talking what he doing, prime time, blah, blah, blah. And an OG in the barbershop, he said, Jay, look at Deion. He got all kind of money, huh? He rich, huh? And I'm like, yeah, obviously. He just signed for how many million. He said, okay. Well, no, he said, he said, yeah, he rich. How much does the guy that's afford to pay him? How much does he have? How much is Jerry Jones worth? Thought about it. He said, look how Jerry dressed. Look how he dressed.
Mm-hmm. Jerry ain't walking around with no gold chains on, is he?
So, yeah. I mean, that always, stuck out. Put something on my mind,
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. I think that's probably about our time today. Anything else either one of you want to take us out on?
No, just, hey, hope to see everybody. Get your young people out. Come out, support. Again, grades 6th grade to 12th grade, 6 o'clock to 8 p.m., over to Fort Wayne Urban League, 2135 South Hannah Street. Going to be a good time, learn a lot of stuff. And again, it's all about making our community stronger.
Yep. It's never too early to start learning financial literacy. So, D, JJ, till next time, we are Our Neutral Voices. Peace.